Please introduce yourself, but you're not allowed to tell me your name, where you're from, or what you do. So who are you?
Okay, I am a wife and mother. I am very enthusiastic about life. I go out, I have a lot of curiosity. I go out in the world to see and experience new things, new cultures, sometimes to avoid sitting with my own thoughts. What else can I tell you about myself? I wear monochromatic clothes typically. um, and I feed off of other people's energy. I am a fan of fandom.
I'd like to thank BioOptimizers for their support. If you're looking to sleep better, I recommend their Sleep Breakthrough product. You can use the code JamieLivesWell at checkout at biooptimizers.com. Now, tell me your name, where you're from, and a little bit about your background.
My name is Brooke. I am an Italian American that grew up in the Midwest of the US in Chicago, but lived in New York and LA for a while, and accidentally moved to Denmark during COVID with my Danish husband and our two small children. I am a comms professional. I also host a podcast for the biggest podcast for internationals in Denmark called What Are You Doing in Denmark? And I do content creation, and I'm a journalist and a whole bunch of other things.
You've lived in Chicago, New York, LA, and now Denmark. How has each place shaped a different version of you?
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, so going to the actual city, which is a fantastic city. I never got to live there as a young person, but very kind of safe, wholesome upbringing in the suburbs. I came from a family who spoke their minds, eventually went to school on the East Coast, to university on the East Coast, and learned that you can't really do that all the time. So that was a tough learning. I had to learn how to properly behave in front of people. New York was the perfect time in my niece. I was there 8 years. I was there during the Strokes, during all of the exciting music scene stuff that was happening from the book Meet Me in the Bathroom, which if you are not in the music industry is a good read and gets you some insight into New York City at the time. That's when you and I met, Jamie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a really fantastic time working in the music industry. I was out all the time. And we were all working 3 different jobs and getting by. I am now proud to look back and say I didn't have wealthy parents to rely on. I somehow managed
Mm-hmm.
and had a great time in the process. And then LA was great for my 30s, where it was more daytime hangs, hikes, outdoor life, friends meeting at houses instead of out at bars, which I was kind of excited to not be hanging out at bars all the time like I did in New York. I really did not want to leave New York. I was afraid I would disappear if I left the biggest, greatest city on earth. I believed in that, being the best city ever. But LA made me grow in all these different ways. And my husband, actually, my Danish husband, convinced us to move to LA 2 years into our marriage. He moved from Denmark into my apartment in New York. And then he was like, let's go to LA. And I'm like, okay. And then it turned out to be the best thing. And it was great for my career working in the music industry. I got recruited for bigger and bigger jobs. And yeah, I feel like I was eating better, living better. The traffic was not great. It's the stereotype. The weather was great, although it could be too hot. And then Denmark has been an interesting turn of events that has changed me in a lot of ways. All of the things that I've cultivated, my career, my personality, all these little details that I have painstakingly created as part of me that I thought were the great things about me don't matter because you're in a brand new country. And yes, everybody speaks English, but a lot of Danes grow up with American references, but I didn't realize that my entire personality is based on references and brands and, like I used to watch a show called Supermarket Sweep growing up. That was the greatest show ever. It's like a grocery store game where you like run and get items off the shelf. And we used to guess all the brands. Like it's so intertwined. And then you come to this new country, which is very small and has well, who am I in Denmark? It's a tough question because it's changing all the time. And I'm trying to make a life for myself, starting over a bit as the loud American who tones it down a bit and does not talk on public transport, at least not very loudly. And when my friends and family come to visit, I then see my former self. And I'm like, oh, please be quiet. And when we visit our family in the US, my kids who are 6 and 8, when we come back, I have to remind them to turn down the volume to Danish levels instead of American levels. And, with a Danish and American household, it's interesting to imprint the different parts of ourselves onto our kids. And yeah, so that's a long answer, but it's an exciting place to live. And it's one of the happiest countries. But if you're not feeling happy on a gray, wintry day, you're thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm supposed to be happy.
And when you moved there, what was the biggest culture shock?
Oh my God. So we moved, like I said, on accident because we were just visiting my husband's family for 2 weeks out in the countryside with 2 weeks worth of stuff. And LA was a COVID hotspot at the time, and we kept waiting it out, waiting it out. We waited for a year. So we were borrowing stuff. And I put my kid in preschool, and she was fluent in Danish immediately and then stopped speaking English to me. She was maybe 2.5 at the time. The biggest culture shock I will get to, but just a funny moment that happened early on was she ran over to me at the grocery store and tugged on my shoulder and was like, "Mommy, pulsa, pulsa." And I'm like, "We just had a hot dog. You don't need to eat any more food." But grossly enough, the word for hot dog and poop are the same. So my husband ran up and was like, "She really has to go to the bathroom." And I thought, I can't parent my own child because I don't understand her. So that was like a mini culture shock. But I remember I was commuting on the train a lot when I got a job in Copenhagen. So we were living in a little farm country house in the like 3.5 hours away from Copenhagen. And I saw someone they had their laptop open on the train and their phone next to them. And they just got up with it open and went to the bathroom. And I was so shocked that someone would just leave their laptop open and the phone next to it. And that's when I realized what a high level of trust there is. I mean, people have their babies sleeping outside. I didn't realize that you have to be able to see your baby from the window because I was like, okay, babies sleep outside here, right? So I'll just park my baby at Netto, like the grocery store, and like go inside. And my husband was like, you have to be able to see the baby. And I'm like, oh, right. So I like did the opposite where I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm still making a lot of mistakes trying to integrate and understand things here. But high trust was a big one. And I have to let go a little bit every day. Like even yesterday, I've been here 5 years and it's this morning. So we stopped by the recycling station, me and my two daughters with the cargo bike, and I needed to drop the older one off. And it was the first time I've dropped her at the edge of our neighborhood instead of at our front door. And I'm like, I trust you can make it to the house, right? Because it's like 4 blocks away. And even though she's done this before, it was still me being like, having to take a deep breath. Like, can I just let her walk home? Because by the time kids are 8 here, they're biking themselves to school. The school, by the way, anyone can just walk in. There's no security. There's no front desk. It is run by children. There's 800 children. And if you're trying to find your kid, you have to ask other kids where your kid is. So yeah, it's run by, and I love that they can play for longer and they learn to read a bit later. And I was worried about how that would feel, but they catch up just like any other kid and they get to play for longer in life. So they get to learn these real skills using real knives and, you know, they're kind of left to their own devices. The things that they're jumping off things and like there's a little bit of danger. And I feel like that disappeared somewhere during the like 90s in the US. So I can't like do obstacle courses with them. Like I'm trying to follow them down. I'm like trying not to show that I'm worried about them falling off every single thing because I don't want to be that parent, but it's so foreign to me. But they're living their best lives here. So it's, yeah, the high trust thing is like you trust your kid to find their way home. We used to go to the recycling center, which is an amazing place, by the way. I could talk for hours about why it's great, but they have free coffee, free hot cocoa, toys for the kids to play with while you're sorting all your boring stuff. And the guy that runs it would hand out lollipops to the kids. And I'm like, if this was the US, I would be like knocking the lollipop out of the kid's hand or out of the guy's hand. I'm like, do not give my child candy. But like, and they're just like, hope you have a nice day. Like, there's just this like general niceness between people, like where it's like, wow, what a thoughtful thing that I know exists in the US, but it's just very different in, like a different culture when everybody does that. It's like a homogenous culture.
Yeah, it probably exists more so in, like, I don't know, maybe in the Midwest and small towns and places like that, right? Not in New York, Boston, LA.
I was trying to explain that if you leave your kid in a grocery cart and you go somewhere, even just for a minute, someone will tell on you because they think that like the child has been abandoned or that you've left your child. And here, so Danes have a hard time understanding that. They're like, that's not true. Like, why would that happen? So there is this like, and maybe it's just in the bigger cities. But I have to explain to my kids that when we are back in the US, they can't go that much further ahead from me just because there's so many people and it's so busy and cities, like you say, I've only lived in the big cities. And Copenhagen, I'm in the capital of Denmark, it feels like a big city, but you can get everywhere on a bike in 15 minutes. One time I had to bike 30 minutes and I was like, this feels like a really far away destination. And it's really not. Like you downsize your expectations.
What was the hardest part about building it, or what has been the hardest part about building a life there?
I think friends has been hard. We've moved quite a few times. We lived out in the countryside for 3 years, and I finally had made some Danish friends that I considered good friends. And then we moved to Copenhagen, which is far away, and I had to start over again. And it took about 2, 3 years again to make friends. And if your friends tend to be more international, mine's kind of a mix of Danes and internationals. But international people move, and the older you get, the more your time is precious and you want to spend it with people that really you can be yourself with, and that takes a while to build. And I finally built that, but there are still these moments where I know that some people will move away, and I just have to appreciate everyday life for what it is. The other part is independence, which is a huge one. So I used to be in charge of the finances in our household in the US. I was the breadwinner. I was the leader. I was the leader and everything. And coming to Denmark has been very humbling because I don't understand money, the basics, taxes. Like I've gotten tickets on the train because I did something the wrong way or I missed a sign. I got so many parking tickets when we first moved here because the fourth or fifth sign was, I thought I understood what it meant. So I've definitely paid my way into this country in more ways than one, but that's been a really tough one. And you have to have a super solid relationship if you are going to someone's home country where things are really easy for them. And all of a sudden, all of the dazzling parts about you are not so dazzling. So you have to rethink, what do I bring to this relationship? And also, what do I show my kids? Like, I want them to see me as an independent person, not as a person that can't have a conversation in a big group of people, And I've taken years of Danish class, but it's pretty hard to, unless you work where you have to use it every day. It is pretty tough. Everyone speaks English now in Copenhagen, and I speak Danish with my neighbors. It's just kind of chit chatting. But when it gets to be more deep conversations, it's tough, and you are void of personality because you're just trying to follow what's happening. So that's been the toughest thing: is losing your independence, and then how do you reinvent yourself from there?
And what has been, it's been a surprise in a positive way about Danish culture?
One of the nice things was people follow rules here. When I first moved here during COVID, things were chaotic in the US and there was fear all the time. Like, I was worried about someone spitting on us on purpose. You were reading these headlines about like terrible things. But here, everything is just orderly and people follow the rules and they do it quietly. Like if it was time to wear a mask, everyone wore a mask. And if it wasn't time, it wasn't. I don't know. There's something refreshing about that. Like, but then I can also see the opposite where it's like, what about individuality and all these things? But I feel like it's just nice when people behave properly. And also, I know there's moments where like people let loose. Like summertime is here now, so everyone's excited that the sun finally came out. And nowhere is devoid of, rule breakers. But they trust you until the trust is broken, which is almost the opposite in the US. I feel like my daughters saw these cop cars waiting to kind of ticket someone for speeding on the side of the road, and they had in the US, and they had thought, oh my God, is someone hurt? Because you don't see the police presence as much. It's like if you break the law, then it can be some serious stuff. But if you don't, like, we trust that you will do the right thing. And I know there's a lot of surveillance and cameras and things but my husband, when we first moved here, was like, if you go 1 kilometer over the speed limit, you will get a speeding ticket. It's going to go on your permanent record. Do not do it. I didn't see a cop for 3 years driving out in the country. I was like, where is everybody? I know there's like speed traps and things like that, but ironically, he got a speeding ticket. You just get it in the mail. Like there's not even interaction, there's just like, here's your ticket. Like dates just don't want to interact with each other. Here's your ticket. You must pay your fine. If you try to argue it, we will give you more fine. They love a fine here. I just got one on the train. I was so mad. My friend visiting from LA was just here and I didn't swipe just in time. It was like 3 seconds after we left the station. And sure enough, this lady came over and they are so mean, but I broke the law. So like I have to pay my ticket. If I try to argue it, I'm out of luck and it's a waste of time. So, you said something positive, and I do appreciate that there are rules that people follow here. And for the most part, like that is, and the trust thing is like one of the greatest parts about living in Denmark. And also the green initiatives. They're really like There's a lot of sustainability efforts, a lot of veganism here. So I really admire that as well. You can kind of make things happen with a smaller population, sometimes faster here than you can in other places.
And do you feel healthier or more balanced living there compared to life in the US? If so, why?
I wish I did. It's a very big outdoor exercise culture here. And when I lived out in the country, I got really into running. I had convinced myself because I always thought, oh, running, I don't want to do that ever. And then I said one day, what if I just told myself I really liked it? And so I found a really great running route in the country by my house. And I got to see all different kinds of cows and like wildlife and nature. And I did a couple 5Ks. And then the counter to that is I drink a lot more beer here. And also there's Friday candy, which is probably something the candy companies came up with a long time ago. I know they have it in Sweden as well, but every Friday you go to the grocery store and there's a bulk candy section and you put on like a giant plastic glove and all the kids are in there like picking out their candy mix to watch their Friday night cartoons. And I have gotten into eating bulk candy, which I have not ever had. So I've eaten more sugar and alcohol probably. I mean, in LA, I did feel healthier, I think, because I was around a lot more people that were vegan or, it was just kind of a lot easier I tend to kind of go vegetarian a lot anyway. But I would love to say that I'm healthier since I moved to Denmark, but I don't think it's true. But let's see how it goes. Like I'm working on trying to figure out my routine in Copenhagen and I'm optimistic.
What do you think most Americans misunderstand about Scandinavian life?
So there is a lot of great PR around Scandinavia. It's these kind of idealistic work-life balance. All of that is true. Happiest countries. What do I think people misunderstand? First of all, a lot of people misunderstand that Denmark is not the Netherlands. I always get people, even my very smart friends, being like, "Oh, I met a Dutch person the other day." I'm like, "Good for you." Do you think that's where I live? Because that's not. But on a, I guess, more serious note, nowhere is perfect. And I think there's so much great PR, but it is, there is a lot of seasonal depression here because half the year it is gray, half the year the sun is out. It is like when Dorothy in Wizard of Oz, she opens up to Munchkinland and it's like the color is out. It really feels like whiplash. There's not four seasons, there are two. And there's a lot of teasing in the like shoulder seasons where it's like, is the sun out for good now? Nope, it's raining again. Okay, great. But there is a lot of mental health struggles here, just like anywhere. And I do think moving to Denmark or anywhere in Europe comes with, I mean, nowhere's perfect. I have a lot of friends that are dreaming of escaping to Europe or somewhere else. And there are realities that you will face everywhere. So I'm not saying don't move to Denmark, but just, understand that it's not the perfect place that everyone thinks, just like anywhere, like we have these ideal things in our head of like, there's no worries. It's like, we'll be in a canal and it'll be perfect. And I have really wonderful days that I'm so grateful for, having 6 weeks of vacation a year or 5 weeks of vacation is the average. I think if I added up all the hours I've actually spent with my family since moving here, I mean, I grew up thinking Labor Day weekend was like, oh my God, it's like we have 3 weeks off, but it was just one extra day. You work with what you have in the US, but I was sent away to summer camp for 8 weeks of the summer while my mom worked and my dad worked. So I wasn't with them. And I just get to have like, I think that's what Denmark does really well is like you spend time together with your family and it might be more low key. You might go to the summer house instead of, you know, something else. But I think, that's one of the things this country really gets right is prioritizing that stuff. But yeah, so it is great comparatively, but it's nowhere is perfect.
You touched on mental health there. Is therapy a thing over there?
It is. And what's great is taking mental health leave is very normalized here. I was surprised. There's been quite a few people that have gone on stress leave and it wasn't like, oh, did you hear? Because unfortunately, the American in me, I don't feel like I could ever do it unless my like eyeball was falling out because I just can't. But it is treated very normally here. And I think I was starting to learn about like when that became kind of a thing and how they were like, how that was implemented because I think it's a really great thing. I do think, of course, it's always up to the company and the team to help someone reintegrate back after they've gone on stress leave. But um, there's a lot of therapy options. The national healthcare system is pretty great with that. If you have more specialized needs, I know that if you are trying to get tested for things like ADHD, there is quite I would say like a year waiting list in the national health system. So, but you do have an option for private healthcare. So if there's a way to speed up evaluation, whether it's therapy or psychiatrist or anything like that, you do have options because like in other countries where they just have national healthcare and you don't have a private option, the wait list can be very long and fatally sometimes. So in Denmark, you do have quite a few options.
Mm,
And I
that's
just
good.
mentioned, I, speaking of cultural nuance when it comes to the mental health space. So I wanted to know, I've had postpartum depression after each child around 8 months, which I medicated, like I took antidepressants for. And then I wanted to get evaluated again just this year. And they had me fill out my doctor, my general practitioner had me fill out this kind of questionnaire. And I wonder if there is, when I filled it out, they were like, wow, you really do test high for this. I think there is this like more open feeling, at least among me and my friends in the US, where we are more, our feelings are more at the surface and we share them a lot more. We're like, yes, it's like a mess and oh my God, my life. Whereas I think Danes are a bit more reserved. So I might have read extreme on the Danish scale. So like if a Danish person answered that, would they allow themselves? I don't know. And I'm very much generalizing, but I didn't think about it until doing this because I was like, oh, I am like registering high for depression because like I thought, this was just a normal conversation. And I think there is this difference in culture of how much are you willing to share and feel those raw emotions. I feel like sometimes to Danes and they're like, it encourages me to open up a bit more because when I hear you talk and I'm like, I'm sorry if I just talked your ear off and complained. And they were like, no, I actually like from the depths, I feel like I can now share that I also am not feeling great. So I don't know. That's just from my dealings with people. It's not science, not a proven science.
What's something that you deeply miss about the US and something that you do not miss whatsoever?
I really miss a good bagel. I miss like a New York bagel. I think I've gone through so many years of really being nostalgic for something that is just not within reach because it doesn't exist here. And then getting the thing and realizing it wasn't that great. Really random. I was in Washington, D.C. visiting a friend last year and I always go to the grocery store and I'm like, all the things that I get to enjoy and that I miss. And I was like, what can I bring home with me? And this time it was a bunch of Crystal Light packets, which are really terrible for you. But I was like, I must really miss Crystal Light. And I brought home a bunch and there was all these like red and blue dyes in them when I was putting the water. And I was like, wait a minute. Wait, this is not good. And so I think you said what do I miss the most is probably like, yeah, I mean, I think a bagel really sticks out from New York. And then also, I mean, my friends. I miss like my very good friends, of course. And then what was the second part of the question?
What don't you miss?
Mm, what don't I miss? I don't miss sitting in traffic for an hour and a half each way to work, where I only got to see after having, it was fine when it was just me and my husband, but after having kids, getting that little smidge of time with them was really frustrating. I was just sitting, going nowhere in traffic and questioning my existence. I was like, this kid is going to be 18 and I will have spent 5 minutes with them. So that's something I don't miss. But I think s- what I do miss is when like they're just like the kindness of Americans I was at a show, Not a Surf played in Copenhagen and they had an opening band that they were friends with and just like the sentiment and the kindness and like thank you so much for being here and like the support for each other. I miss that because it's one of the greatest things that Americans have that we get overshadowed for all of the other stuff going on. An Icelandic guy I was on a panel with at a music conference did the best impression of an American because he was talking about how Reykjavik has been taken over with tourists and like no actual Icelandic people live there anymore and the prices have gone up. But he's like, it's just a bunch of Americans walking around pointing at things going, wow. And like, where's the plaque for this? And that is like, I feel seen because as silly as that is, I think it's great that we have this wonder in ourselves that we're like, look how old this thing is. And like, like this building must be preserved or, so I think that there is this id enthusiasm that I also do miss besides a bagel. I miss like that sentiment. Hopefully some people see it as a breath of fresh air here. I think they do. But it's just nice when you get that on the receiving end and someone talks to you randomly and you're like, why are you talking to me? Oh, yes, I remember I like this feeling. I'll leave the stuff I don't miss at traffic because I like the positive part instead.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of, I've always felt the glass is half full here in America.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm from the UK, but I've lived in the States for the best part of 20 years. And people always ask me when I go back, and I say, the glass is half full. It's not half full everywhere else.
Yeah. And I sometimes flip back and forth between the two sentiments because I can see when I overhear a bunch of American tourists going, "Oh my God," like there's famous memes on the internet about it all the time. I cringe a little bit because I'm not used to it anymore. But so I can I feel like I'm in between lands because I'm like, when the inner person of me wants to be so excited and enthusiastic and like goofy, but then I have to kind of temper it so I don't overdo it. Like I remember being in the office in Copenhagen at several jobs and kind of having to tone down myself because we are stereotypically loud and people will bitch about it and be like, ugh, these Americans, like they're so loud. But I remember I was taking calls at my desk because all the meeting rooms were booked. And I don't think I talk that loud, but I am a comms person. I need to talk on the phone to do my job. And this Danish woman across from me, she bristled. I think she didn't say anything to me for months before finally saying, we don't take calls at our desk. I'm like, why didn't you just tell me yesterday? Like, I've been this clown the whole time. Like, not just, howdy, how's it going? But it's people don't say anything until they absolutely need to. That's another strange thing about living here where if you commute in the morning, I look around me and there's bicycles and there's cars and it's busy and it looks like the entire scene is on mute, like it's a movie. It is so quiet. I can hear a pin drop and I'm not even kidding. And in the grocery store, someone, instead of saying, oh, excuse me, can I just get by you to reach this thing? They will just reach in front of you and take the thing so they don't have to talk to you. And at first I thought that was rude. And now I find myself doing it too. So it's just about like, you can never expect another place that was not built for you to rise to your expectations, right? That's kind of
Hmm.
the learning is like having to re-level your expectations all the time. And that's where I think the happiest country stuff comes into play for all these countries that get that, every year is because they, you have enough. You have what your neighbor has. You see kind of, you've leveled your expectations and you have about the same. And that's happiness, I think. And it sounds like some people will say like, oh, these happiest countries, they just lower their expectations and that's why they're happy. And not quite it. I think it's more like adjusting because lowering sounds negative. So it depends on what day you ask someone. Is it winter? Are they struggling?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So different. How do friendships and community feel different in Denmark compared to the US?
Well, it's also the age I'm at. So the friends you make, it's like the show Friends. It's the time in your life when your friends are your family and you spend so much time with your friends at certain parts of like certain eras of your life in your 20s. Like I have some best friends from when I was in my 20s in New York and some best friends from my 30s in LA. And then coming to Denmark, I kind of you get plugged into either if you're a parent where your kids end up going to school, kind of some of that, although some of those parents would just ignore me and talk over me because I was a foreigner. So it's like a little bit like being a ghost navigating around. And then trying to find your people. I remember going on like apps trying to find friends, and there would be like 1 hour away, there is one lady. And I'm like, will I drive an hour to just go have a normal conversation with someone? Several times I had some false starts with friendships that were English speakers that came up to me at Tivoli, an amusement park, or somewhere out in the world, like, oh, another English speaker, what a relief. And I'm like, can we get each other's information? Like, do you want to hang out tomorrow? Like, I'll come babysit your kid. It was just like too much. I was starved for trying to find anybody that understood me. And so it's making friends when you're older, like I mentioned, is tough because you have higher criteria. And so moving to Copenhagen, I had a bigger international pool to draw from, but I also got plugged in really randomly to a WhatsApp group. So it became like kind of a bunch of moms that are all either trailing spouses where they've had to all reinvent themselves. They are badass women that had to start their own businesses. And, being an international scene where people come on contracts, a lot of them come and go, and that's really hard. So if you're friends with a Dane, you're likely to have a longer friendship with them because they are here. They're not going anywhere. I'm married to a Dane, so that means that, and our kids are in public school for 10 years. And so we've kind of set that limit for ourselves of we'll be here for at least 10 years. Beyond that, I don't know. But it is tough. I do feel like the neighborhood we're in is really wonderful. Like we have a lovely community. We had a really wonderful community out in the farm village we were living in. We ate together in the community house. That was like all span of people, doctors, um, you know, carpenters. It was like being on jury duty, but your neighbors are like who you eat with. And so I have that in Copenhagen as well, which is really nice. I've only recently, after 2 years, developed some real friendships with people where I feel like I can be myself and be honest. And that's a hard thing, because when you are trying to talk to your friends that are 9 hours behind or 6 hours behind, the days are pretty quiet. And if you're wanting to vent about something, you're kind of alone. It's very lonely for people that are that far ahead in the time zones or wherever if you're just in different time zones. So it's like the end of the day is when my friends are waking up and I've had a whole day and then I catch up on everything I missed overnight, that kind of stuff. So it's can be very lonely and it just takes a while to build that community. And I think loneliness is one of the toughest things to try and solve anytime you move to a new place and try to find your place within it.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that in Dubai. Same thing, all the things you just said. And it's a very international city, but people just didn't want to commit to friendships. It was
Because they're
bizarre.
also like leaving, right? They know that they're gonna, and I guess I admire families that can do that, but I just, I think I don't know if it's the old notion of being somewhere for a while. And like, this is why it was hard for me to leave New York even after 8 years is like starting over again. And I know you grow from it, but at some point I'm like, I'm exhausted.
Hmm.
I was trying to explain to someone I had to learn some like new skills on Canva the other day or something. And I was like, why am I already tired before I start this? And it's because when you live in a foreign country, you're already carrying this like, what does this mean and how does this work? And like constantly without realizing you are because you just have to you have to deal with it. So I felt like I had a mirror up to my face when my friend was visiting me from LA because there were multiple different scenarios where I was doing the wrong thing without realizing. And this is 5 years after living here because it's a constant. So then what your reserves are left over for is like, can I be the best person I can be after all of that on top of it? And I'm like a
Mm.
privileged white lady. I'm not dealing with half of what people have to deal with when they come here. If they have a foreign name or, yeah, different skin color, all that stuff.
Yeah. Dubai was very like that too, actually. It was interesting. If someone listening feels stuck in their life and dreams of starting over somewhere new, what would you want them to know?
Well, we did not make a plan. We just accidentally stayed, like I mentioned. I would say make a plan, but sometimes, I don't know, it's tough to make a plan. I guess it would be good to explore the places you're thinking about and really plug yourself into the culture by, I don't know, social media, Facebook groups. Like you can get a lot of intel on what's really happening in a place if you are curious about it. I know there's the articles sometimes where it's like person moves to Spain, realizes they don't like Spain and moves home. It's like, oh, it's too hot here or whatever it is. I think if you are daydreaming about a place, also look at where is most possible to live with visas and all of that stuff so you don't give yourself extra work. And then also, yeah, like where your skills would be the most viable because I think some places are more easier to move to than others. But that would be what I would do is if I'm dreaming about moving across the world, I would just want to do as much kind of recon as possible and see how people actually are and not just reading, the next puff piece about like don't read the articles about tourism and travel because much like living in LA, I only went to the beach when I had guests and that's because I lived on the east side. I loved living on the east side, but that's what you might think of LA as, and it's not a, it's a different story. And LA was so many other things to me, and amazing beach as well. But yeah, that's what I would say is talk to people. I have a lot of people that are thinking about moving to Denmark that follow me on Instagram, and I do take the time to respond to them. If they're like, I'm nervous about what might be in store for me, I work in this field, I can at least send them to a website or send them to, hey, you should follow this group. And I know there's more people like me out there that want to help. And some people actually have made a business out of it. Maybe I will one day. But in the meantime, it's just a friendly ambassador. If you have any questions about moving to Denmark, you can ask me and I will be happy to answer them. But yeah, that's what I would say.
I'd like to thank BioOptimizers once again for supporting the show. You can use the code JamieLivesWell at checkout for 15% off of your order. Brooke, thank you so much for being with me today. Where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Brooke Black Just. It's my name with a just at the end. And also the What Are You Doing in Denmark podcast is also on all podcast platforms. And thank you for having me, Jamie. I'm really excited about everything that you've been doing with this podcast. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.